What if I told you there are places you'll never see on Google Maps? Islands gone, cities blurred, palaces erased from the digital earth. These are the places big tech doesn't want you to find. And if you like these weekly map drops, make sure you hit subscribe. That way my phone will stop labeling 12 hours on Google Earth as way too much screen time. Number 25. Sandy Island, Australia. We're not sure if Google Maps is hiding Sandy Island or if it actually disappeared altogether. If you search Sandy Island, Australia, you'll see a tiny island off Australia's Northern Territory. That's not what we're talking about. Our Sandy Island is located right over here. See that vague outline of where an island should be? Yeah, that's it. In the late 1700s, Captain James Cook charted a spot he called Sandy Island, sitting between Australia and New Caledonia. A whaling ship saw it too. For 200 years, mapmakers kept drawing it in, but then, in 1979, poof, it was gone. Why? Well, in the 20th century, a bunch of passing ships reported nothing. It was just a whole lot of blue water. Eventually, the island ghosted so many explorers it got erased from maps entirely, probably the worst case of catfishing in cartography. On November 22, 2012, Sandy Island was finally erased from Google Maps. Australian scientists actually sailed the RV Southern Surveyor to check it out, only to find a whole lot of nothing. They measured the ocean floor, 4,300 feet, 1,300 meters deep, meaning there was no island hiding under the waves. So what happened to Australia's Phantom Island? What did Cook and those ships actually see? Still a mystery. There are also places that very much exist, but still don't show up on the map. Like number 24, the Amazon rainforest. The Amazon rainforest appears on Google Maps, but just like Grandma's eyesight, it's all blurry, or an endless canopy of green. Here, the jungle acts like a giant curtain. Satellites blinded, aircraft, same deal. The Amazon is so remote that there are between 90 to 107 uncontacted groups living there. Meanwhile, I lose Wi-Fi for 10 minutes, and it's the apocalypse. Any trails they've cut, structures they've built, or villages they live in, hidden away. Satellites can't see them, planes can't spot them, and most of the time, we don't know where they are. They're the ultimate hide-and-seek champs. Then there are places we know about, we just wish we didn't. Number 23. 2207 Seymour Avenue, Cleveland. Some places have such a tragic backstory that no one wants to be reminded of them, not even Google Maps. This house in Cleveland was the setting of a living nightmare. In the early 2000s, Ariel Castro kidnapped 3 women and locked them in his basement. They were trapped there for nearly a decade. The women, Michelle Knight, Amanda Berry, and Gina De Jesus, survived horrific conditions and were rescued after Berry went full Houdini, broke out, and got the neighbors to call police. Castro was sentenced to life in prison, plus 1,000 years without parole, just to make sure. And the house this all happened in? Click on Google Street View and you'll see a big blur. When Street View snapped the house in 2013, the women were still inside. So Google pulled the images. The house was demolished that same year under Castro's plea deal. On a positive note, while the house was being destroyed, Michelle Knight stood outside watching it collapse, which is a pretty great start on the road to recovery. Of course, homes can also be deleted from Google Maps for non-traumatizing reasons. Number 22. 2 houses in Stockton-on-Tees, England. Click around Princeport Road in Stockton-on-Tees, 2 of the most British place names on the planet, and you'll find 2 blurred houses. Sure, you can ask Google to blur your house. The weird thing here, nobody did. One of the homeowners told the local newspaper, "I've been in this house since 2000, but I have no idea why you can't see it." Yet the homes have been blurred and remain blurred since 2009. Was it a camera glitch, a Street View driver going full Fast and Furious, or maybe a nudist forgetting to close the curtains? And let's be honest, no one wants to see that in high-res 360 degrees. Check it out for yourself and tell us your conclusions. I definitely know why this next place doesn't exist on Google Maps. Number 21. Hexagone Balard. In the middle of Paris, you'll find two blurred out blocks. Why? Because they're home to the Hexagone Balard, a bunch of buildings connected to the French Armed Forces. That includes the Ministry of the Armed Forces headquarters and other connected federal offices. Strangely, the nearby Commission on Atomic and Alternative Energy, wide open on Street View. It used to be normal for defense buildings and military bases to get blacked out on Google Maps, but in most countries, that stopped in recent years. Greek airports and military installations were all blurred out. Same thing with German air bases, like Ramstein, and other military setups around the world. But now, at Ramstein Air Base, you can get close enough to count the planes on Google Maps, obviously, not by hopping the fence. I really can't stress that enough. But France still keeps things locked down. Google Street View has blurred out most of its military buildings in Paris, with the exception of the complex's pool, which has really clear photos. But we guess the color of the pool water is not relevant to national security. Unlike number 20, Marcoule nuclear site, Chouclain, France. In Sunny Province, just north of Avignon on the Rhône, sits a massive nuclear facility. But don't waste time looking for it on Google Maps. It's one big blur. The Marcoule nuclear site has been running since 1955. Only 9 countries have nuclear weapons today, so blurring nuclear sites on Google Maps is probably fair. France is one of them, sitting on 290 warheads, a very different side of the wine, cheese, and romance reputation the country currently has. Marcoule nuclear site does, weirdly, have reviews on Google Maps. Local guide John says G1 best reactor building. One man's entire review was at the top, 5 stars. Another reviewer comments, very scary, but also rated it 5 stars. So honestly, no idea what's going on at Marcoule nuclear site. But apparently, it's scary at the top with great reactors and definitely worth a 5-star review. Or a bunch of internet trolls decided to leave comments on a blurred out nuclear site. You decide. So far, we've seen a Phantom Island, a rainforest that still has better privacy settings than I do, and a Cleveland house, blurred for reasons you really don't want to relive. Up next, a totally free and transparent country. Wait, number 19. North Korea, kinda. North Korea used to be one big blank spot on Google Maps. Then in 2013, Google filled it in, just like a dictatorship jigsaw puzzle. Most of the pieces came from satellite images and crowdsourcing. North Korea stays low-res and unmarked, with fewer than 10,000 people online. Everyone else is stuck behind the world's strictest parental controls. And even when they log on, it isn't Google Maps they're browsing. What they can access is Kwangmyeong, a local version of the internet tightly controlled by the Kim family. And according to reports, it does not have Google Maps. Can't have North Koreans realizing the rest of the world is doing a little better than state TV suggests. The only people who can upload photos to Google Maps are a handful of foreign expats and political elites. Pyongyang is the best labeled, and even that's generous. But even here, a few photos of landmarks are dated. Some photos, based on quality and fashion, if you can call it that, are obviously from the 1980s or even 70s. For all we know, half those places are gone. Weirdly enough, North Korea's neighbor also has a bit of an issue with Google Maps, and it's not the neighbor you're thinking of. Number 18, South Korea. Obviously, South Korea broadly exists on Google Maps, but the country has had an ongoing beef with Google for a while. If you've visited for the food, culture, or a new skincare regimen, you might have noticed that using Google Maps there is frustrating. For such a high-tech country, it doesn't make much sense. South Korea refuses to export its high-precision map data to Google, no matter how much Google begs. Apparently, it's one of the few governments left that still knows how to say no to Silicon Valley. South Korea keeps the data private thanks to its scuffle with the North. You know, the one neighbor who threatens to nuke you every week. We've all got one. Google offered to blur security and military installations to get the sweet data they need, and South Korea has looked at Google's proposal 3 times in 20 years. The most recent was in the summer of 2025. After all the delays and debate, the answer was still no. Well, hey, maybe the next place is visible within its home country. Number 17, Jeanette Island in Russia. Look up Janet Island, Ostrov Janeta, and you'll land on a frozen chunk of Russia, just sitting in the Arctic. Right next to it, another island about the same size hanging out like twinsies. What's weird about that? Well, keep zooming in. Just a little further, and you see that? Both islands are nearly perfect ovals. And whatever Google Maps shows inside them doesn't look real, more like placeholder terrain than actual land. The borders of Jeanette Island just fade out to sea, like someone used the feather tool in Photoshop badly. There's no clear coastline indicated. On the island to the northwest, it looks like someone just copy-pasted an oval chunk of another map, complete with a random slice of ocean still attached. What's the deal with that? Surprisingly, Vladimir Putin and the FSB aren't in the mood to give answers. In fact, that part of Google Maps used to show nothing at all, until, presumably, the Russian government realized they had to slap something there, just to make things look legit. So, if you find yourself in the East Siberian Sea, check it out. And if you live to tell the tale, let me know. Not that Russia is the only one blurring out islands. Number 16. Amchitka Island in Alaska. In Alaska's Aleutian chain, you'll find Amchitka Island, but there's no finders keepers here. The US military nabbed it first. The US Atomic Energy Commission nuked it from 1965 to 1971. Seriously, 3 underground detonations took place here: an 80-kiloton blast in 1965, a 1-megaton blast in 1969, and a 5-megaton blast in 1971. That last one, 333 times more powerful than the nuclear bomb that destroyed Hiroshima. Seems like overkill, yeah? Safe to say, no one with the normal number of limbs lives there anymore. All that's left are the ruins of an airstrip and some containers. The US still swings by every couple of years just to make sure the island isn't glowing in the dark. Amchitka is supposed to be fine by now, set to become a restricted wildlife preserve by the end of 2025. Hopefully the radiation doesn't turn it into a knockoff Jurassic Park. Still, something doesn't seem right. Most of the island shows up crystal clear on satellite, except the northwest. There, the mountains look like someone smeared Vaseline on the lens. Everything around them is perfectly sharp, though. It's got a lot of people asking, what's in that part of Amchitka? For now, we really don't know, and it's hardly the only mysterious island in the world. Number 15. Parts of Nauru. There are 2 rectangular-shaped, blocked-out sections of southwestern Nauru. Nauru's a tiny island in the South Pacific with a weird history. It went from filthy rich on bird poop to flat broke after strip mining the place into the ground. Hey, who hasn't though? But that's another story for another time. What's important is that 1 in 4 people in Nauru are currently below the poverty line, putting the country in a desperate situation for cash. Look around the tiny country, only 8 square miles, 21 square kilometers in size, and one building stands out: Regional Processing Center Camp 3, which is a very polite way of saying prison. Australia uses it as an immigration detention center. Apparently, Nauru found one way to make money. But what about the blurred out areas? The processing center is clearly visible. One theory is that Google blurs the homes of people working at the center. It's not exactly a job to put on your LinkedIn page. The workers aren't very popular. So the blurring might be a way to keep them from being singled out. Or maybe Google Maps just didn't care much about this tiny island and straight up forgot. We've had North Korea mapped like a bad jigsaw, Russia copy-pasting fake islands, and America nuking one of its own. And there's still a lot more to come. Let's keep this blurred world tour rolling. Next stop, another tropical place Google would rather you squint at. Number 14. Moruroa Island in Polynesia. Among the many beautiful islands in the Pacific Ocean, you'll find Moruroa Island. At first glance, it seems like any other nearby atoll, a strip of land surrounding beautiful blue water. And up until recently, the western half of the atoll was completely blurred. Yeah, turns out Moruroa isn't a great choice for your next vacation. France used it for a series of nuclear tests for decades, making it a palm tree-lined Chernobyl. And their nuclear facility was in that western part of the island. Initial nuclear damage fades in days. Fallout, though, like a bad roommate, sticks around. The EPA says radionuclides like cesium-137 linger with a half-life of 30 years. And the last tests on Mururoa were conducted in 1995. Shockingly, France hasn't announced what kind of fallout its super-secret nuclear tests caused. But the land, water, and air on the island is likely still teeming with radiation. Today, you can still see an airstrip marked on the island, but not much else. And locals aren't happy with France's testing, or their failure to clean things up after. Many have threatened to sue France for damage to the environment and nearby islands. But for now, France has just kept the island a no-go zone. Like if your mom asked you to do laundry, and then you just threw your clothes into the closet and sealed it up instead. Now that we've gone over the sordid history and unknown present of Pacific Islands, let's move on to something less death and destruction focused. Number 13. The Home Alone House. In the 90s classic movie Home Alone, Kevin McAllister and his family lived in Chicago, but the house used in the movie was actually in Winnetka, Illinois. It's located on 671 Lincoln Avenue. Before you go to Google Maps to see how closely the exterior matches up with your childhood memories, pump the brakes a bit. The entire house is blurred out of Google Maps. Why? Probably because of a bunch of people just like you who wanted to look up the famous Home Alone house. At some point, the owners had had enough of that. They requested that Google Maps blur out their house to protect their privacy. Most of the movie wasn't even filmed inside the house, but rather in a nearby high school gym. For whatever reason, a studio was just not an option. Either way, you won't be able to see this classic movie home from your computer. And to protect the privacy of the owners, we strongly recommend not driving up to the house either. Just like we don't recommend driving up to number 12, Pusat Zeni Angkatan Darat. This Indonesian military base, like plenty of others, gets the blur treatment on Google Maps. Not too surprising. For years, countries blurred their bases, at least until most stopped bothering. But Indonesians are still wary of the military's role. Not surprising, since the country was under military rule from 1966 to 1998, before finally switching to democracy. Since 2022, protests have erupted over new laws, some cracking down on blasphemy, others making criticism of those in charge a jailable offense. Then, in 2025, a new law let military officers slide into more civilian posts, setting off Indonesians' military junta's spidey sense. Either way, blurring every military site in the country isn't calming anyone down. Most nations only hide a base or two. Indonesia blacked out the whole set. Number 11. Polish Special Forces Base. Poland's Special Forces Base houses the command for its Special Operations Forces. The name's not exactly creative, but the people inside are still terrifying. Poland's elite unit, GROM, has even trained alongside US Delta Force and managed to impress them. They specialize in recon, intel, and guerrilla tactics, taking on everything from covert ops to mountain warfare. Poland takes defense seriously. Probably helps that Russia is right next door. In August of 2025, the government approved a record defense budget at 4.8% of GDP, the highest in NATO. So it makes sense that they'd want to keep their elite special forces base off of Google Maps. As do our usual blur out everything suspects, the French, at number 10, Toulon Naval Base. On the stunning French Riviera, you'll find movie stars at Cannes, clubs at Saint-Tropez, gorgeous coastal towns, and the country's biggest naval base. There goes France, surprising us with their strong military focus once again. As of 2011, over 60% of the French Navy's tonnage is based in Toulon. It's France's biggest defense port, arsenal, massive shipyards, and the Med's largest dry dock. They also keep their aircraft carrier there, named, like their most irritating airport, after Charles de Gaulle. Basically, if France parks its boats anywhere, it's here. And since we've already covered France's nukes, if they ever launched one, it would likely come from a nuclear sub docked at Toulon. About 20,000 military and civilian staff work here, because massive bases like this don't exactly run themselves. With so many sensitive operations at Toulon, it's no surprise France blurred it out on Google Maps. Can't have random people zooming in and stumbling onto naval secrets, or worse, les nukes, on their lunch break. Actually, the area is so important to the Navy that Toulon Airport is blurred out. Part of the building is used by the French military as well. As you might have guessed, French law is very strict about showing its military buildings to the world. So, Nauru went ghost mode, the McAllister house vanished, and Poland pixelated down its special forces base. What surprised you so far? Ready for some more nothing to see sightseeing? Good, cause Google's got plenty of it. Number 9. Penitentiary Baumettes in Marseille. Opened in 1936, Baumettes prison in Marseille was built to hold just under 1,200 inmates. It had separate wings for women, juveniles, and even a hospital. But like most prisons, it quickly learned the inmate population doesn't stick to the floor plan. By 2012, Baumettes was stuffed with almost 1,800 inmates, 600 over capacity. France eventually shut it down in 2018. By 2022, the whole place was rubble. As of September 2022, a new 740-cell prison is rising on the same site, and like Hollywood sequels, this one is bigger and better. It'll hold even more inmates. But the whole place isn't on Google Maps. That's down to a 2018 helicopter jailbreak, where inmates literally used online maps to plan their escape. France's solution? Blur every prison. But enough about bases, wartime facilities, and prisoners. Let's move on to more creative aspects of society, like science. Number 8. Polygone Scientifique, France. In Grenoble, France, there's a massive European science hub called the Polygone Scientifique, possibly the nerdiest name imaginable. On this little peninsula, you'll find experts in biology, nanotech, condensed matter physics, plus a laundry list of labs with names that sound like boss levels. Institut La Langevin, the European Synchrotron, and Minatech. Can you tell I played Expedition 33? The Institut La Langevin is all about groundbreaking neutron research. France and Germany launched it. The UK signed on next, and eventually 10 more countries joined, proving even science has group projects nobody can escape. Minatech is a nanotech powerhouse. 3,000 researchers, 1,200 students, 600 industry partners. They pump out 1,600 papers a year and 350 patents. Basically, a new patent every day. Impressive, but let's see them build a backlog of geography videos. But the Polygone Scientifique also dabbles in, drumroll please, nuclear research. So, in classic French fashion, it's blurred on Google Maps. Nothing says sensitive site like pixelating it for the whole world to see. And we can't talk about massive scientific research sites without mentioning number 7, the HAARP Research Facility. It's not blurred, on purpose, that is, but it's still quite blurry. HAARP is located in Gakona, Alaska, 55 miles 88 kilometers away from the bustling village of Glen Allen, population 601. It's 100 miles 161 kilometers away from the 1,500-person strong town of Tok. In other words, HAARP is planted squarely in the middle of nowhere. For most people, that explains the fuzzy aerial shots and the satellite glitches that lingered until 2013. For others, it's just more proof the place is hiding something shady. Let's start with what HAARP stands for. High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program. Stumble onto conspiracy YouTube for 5 minutes, and you'll run into HAARP, right between Flat Earth and lizard people. It's one of the most controversial scientific facilities in the world. HAARP mostly focuses on studying the Earth's ionosphere, part of the upper atmosphere. The research is funded by the University of Alaska. Oh, and the Air Force, and the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA. DARPA is one of the US government's most innovative and slightly terrifying agencies. They gave us the internet and GPS, but now they're bankrolling plant-eating robots and cyber insects. If any agency qualifies as a mad scientist outfit, it's DARPA. With DARPA and the Air Force involved, people thought it was pretty sus. Cue the conspiracy theory that HAARP controls the weather. Others are convinced the government is hiding way deeper secrets here, like a UFO testing site. That said, HAARP runs open houses, complete with activity guides and event maps. Visitors even snap photos and post them online. Not exactly the playbook for a top-secret mind control lab. Doesn't really seem like something a top-secret super evil organization would do. Unless that's exactly what they would do to throw us off the scent. At this point, HAARP should be handing out tinfoil hats in the gift shop, but they're not the only place to have given birth to conspiracy theories. Number 6. White stripes and spots all over Antarctica. The remote continent of Antarctica has fueled hundreds of conspiracy books and videos, and if you click around on Google Maps, you'll find a lot to make you suspicious. There's a huge white stripe of land to the east of McMurdo Station, or a few whiteout round areas to the west. What's Google Maps hiding down there? And the government. Actually, all of the governments. Antarctica is run by 58 treaty members, with 7 countries squabbling over slices like it's a frozen pizza. So I'm not sure which government is even hiding something. However, the explanation isn't one conspiracy theorists will like. Honestly, it's mostly bad conditions and Google not caring to send aerial photographers. Antarctica isn't exactly a cash cow for Google Maps. Nobody's asking for directions across the ice sheets, and there's no matcha shops tagging themselves south of Glacier Number 9. So Google doesn't bother making the maps here all that accurate. And it doesn't help that Antarctica is a nightmare to photograph. Blizzards, whiteouts, and brutal winds make clean satellite shots nearly impossible. The air temperature clash over the ice sheets fuels gusts up to 199 miles an hour, 327 kilometers an hour. Not exactly ideal conditions for flying small planes over an uninhabited icy land. So Antarctica probably isn't hiding much, unless the penguins have gone full Illuminati. We've found out about French prisons being blurred after a helicopter jailbreak, a science hub pixelated for tinkering with nukes, and an Alaskan lab blamed for controlling the weather. We've hit the top 5. Let's squint our way through the world's biggest blind spots. Number 5. Ciudad de la Paz, Equatorial Guinea. Quick facts on Equatorial Guinea. It's run by Teodoro Obiang, the world's longest-serving non-royal leader, 45 years and counting. Surprisingly, that also comes with staggering corruption. In 2024, it ranked 173rd out of 180 on Transparency International's index. And its capital, Malabo, sits on an island while most of the country is on the mainland. Because why make things easy? In 2011, the government announced a brand new mainland capital. First, it was Oyala, and then in 2017, they rebranded it Ciudad de la Paz. Different names, same story. A bottomless money pit. How's it looking? Well, so far, a golf course, university, and luxury hotel have been completed. According to the Wall Street Journal, the capital also had 50 luxury villas as of 2022. But there's a problem. The new capital is supposed to be home to 160,000 to 200,000 people. What happened to the project? Officially, delays were blamed on COVID and falling oil prices. Unofficially, no one really knows what it's cost, because in a dictatorship, budgets are classified, at least for people not living in prison. But here's what doesn't make sense. The unbuilt parts of the city, most of it, are fully visible on Google Maps. The completed parts of the city, the golf course, hotel, and some homes and offices, all blurred out. Why the blur? Maybe officials don't want anyone tallying up how much cash has or hasn't been spent. Or maybe some of those shiny buildings aren't actually there, at least not outside the brochures. No one is sure, but speaking of long-ruling leaders, did you know some royal residences are also left off of maps? No, not Buckingham. I'm talking about number 4, the Royal Palaces of Brussels. This is pretty uncommon for royal residences today. Most others are fully visible from above. On March 21, 2007, Belgium passed a royal decree banning surveillance of royal estates, including aerial photos. So, both the Royal Palace and the Palace in Laeken are blurred out on Google Maps. Royal privacy, now available in Pixelation. Today, Google Maps just shows a big blur over those spots. Technically, the decree bans aerial photos within 5,000 feet, 1,500 meters of the palaces. But since the rest of Brussels is crystal clear, something doesn't add up. Maybe the royals finally realized pixelating half the city isn't exactly practical in the 21st century. All the blurred out, distorted, or low-res places we've gone over are blacked out for privacy, military, or other reasons. But what about a location that exists in real life but is literally nowhere to be found on Google Maps? Number 3. Fastnet Rock. This island off the southern coast of Ireland is labeled on Google Maps, but it's nowhere to be found on satellite views. It may be small, but it's still bigger than the houses you can see just 8 miles 13 kilometers away in County Cork. The island even has a 177-foot, 54-meter lighthouse. It's nicknamed the Teardrop of Ireland. For countless immigrants heading to America, it was the last glimpse of home before crossing the Atlantic. It's also known because of a classic yacht race known as the, of course, Fastnet Yacht Race. Sailors race each other using Fastnet Rock as a rounding point. Fastnet Rock is bigger than plenty of spots you can see on Google Earth, but it may be AWOL simply because no one bothered to grab aerials of it. Satellites only go so far, and most of what Digital Globe releases to the public is stuck in low res. So, chances are, no one on Google Maps cared enough about making it part of its online cartography. But at least they put a named pin in it. Before the last stop, here's an honorable mention. A massive territory that stayed mostly unmapped until recently. And the way they finally mapped it, absolute genius. Number 2, the Faroe Islands. The Faroes are extremely Instagrammable islands. Maybe they've popped up on your feed recently. They belong to Denmark, but they're in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, between Iceland and Norway, and north of the UK. And up until a couple of years ago, around 2022-2023, most of the islands showed up as one big blur on Google Maps. Some say the islands are blurred because they're too remote and sparsely populated. But then you look at Svalbard. It's way more remote, buried in the Arctic with fewer than 3,000 people spread across almost 23,500 square miles, almost 61,000 square kilometers. It's mapped in crystal clear detail. According to reports, there was little aerial coverage of the Faroe Islands because of technical challenges. In fact, up until 2016-2017, Google hadn't even sent cars to get the Faroe Islands on Street View. That's when residents came up with a brilliant idea: Sheep View. The Faroes have a lot of sheep. So, in July of 2016, a local resident suggested mounting solar-powered 360-degree cameras onto some of the more easygoing sheep and let them wander around. Instant, woolly Google Street View cars. Locals and tourists joined into the effort. They used a Street View tracker and 360-degree cameras supplied by Google. Most surprisingly, it worked. You can now see Faroe Islands all around, and it must have motivated Google to take care of the aerial views in Google Maps as well. Unlike the Faroes, who made huge efforts to get put on the map, other communities have made huge efforts to get off the map entirely. Number 1. North Oaks, Minnesota. Almost unique on this list, North Oaks is blurred for none of the usual reasons. Not the military, not royals, not nuclear secrets, and definitely not a sheep shortage. So why can't it be seen on Google Maps? Well, because of a homeowners association, or HOA. If you try to see North Oaks from above, you'll notice it's unusually low res compared to the neighborhoods around it. Check out Google Street View. Well, you can't. There's no Street View available here. See, North Oaks is a bit of a private community, literally. It used to be a gated community until the gates were removed. Now there's just private access signs everywhere. The area is private land with private roads managed by North Oaks Company and the North Oaks Homeowners Association. You may be completely unsurprised to find out it's also near a bunch of golf courses. Back in 2008, the North Oaks HOA went full Karen and fired off a strongly worded letter to Google. It accused the Street View car of trespassing. Google might spar with the Justice Department, but a wealthy HOA? Too much hassle. It folded instantly and wiped North Oaks off of Street View. It's an inspiring story of a community standing up to big tech. A classic David versus Goliath. If David lived in an area with a median home value of $1.1 million. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you want to see more videos like this, then please consider subscribing and turn on notifications. It really does make a difference. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time on MapPack.